The morning sun spilled through the dusty windows of Ruby's diner, painting long golden streaks across the empty tables. The smell of fresh coffee mingled with the soft hiss of bacon frying on the stove. Ruby adjusted her apron, tucking in the loose strings, and sighed softly. It was another quiet morning, the kind where the ticking of the wall clock sounded louder than the chatter of customers. That's when she saw him again, the boy in the gray hoodie, sitting at the corner booth, his small hands cupped around a chipped mug of water. He never ordered anything. Never spoke. Never looked anyone in the eye. But every morning, without fail, he came. Ruby had noticed him 2 weeks ago, walking along the roadside in the freezing dawn, shivering and lost. He couldn't have been older than 9 or 10. Something about his eyes haunted her, not just the sadness in them, but the silence. She had tried speaking to him that first day, asking where his parents were, if he was lost, but he only shook his head and pointed to his throat. That's when she realized he couldn't speak. A mute boy, alone, wandering the edge of town. Since that day, Ruby began leaving a plate of food on his table, scrambled eggs, toast, sometimes a sandwich if they were running short. He never asked. He just ate quietly, head bowed, as though afraid the world might snatch the food away. She never charged him a cent. Every day, he finished his meal, gave a small nod of gratitude, and disappeared into the mist outside. No one knew where he went. No one cared to ask. Except Ruby. The other staff sometimes teased her. "You'll never make a profit feeding strays," one of the cooks joked. But Ruby didn't mind. Something deep in her chest told her this boy had a story, one he couldn't tell, but one that needed to be heard. And so, every day, she waited for him. Every day, she made sure a warm meal was ready when he walked in through the door. One cold morning, Ruby noticed something strange. The boy's hoodie was torn, his hands scraped. His eyes darted nervously toward the window, as if someone was following him. When Ruby brought his breakfast, he flinched at the sound of a siren in the distance. She frowned, kneeling beside him. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked softly. He didn't look at her, just shook his head and began to write something on a napkin. His small fingers trembled as he scribbled words she could barely make out. "They're coming." Before she could ask who, he crumpled the napkin and shoved it into his pocket, his lips pressed tightly. Ruby's heart quickened. The boy's fear wasn't the ordinary kind, it was the kind that came from running. From hiding. She wanted to ask more, but he had already turned back to his meal, eyes fixed on his plate. That night, Ruby couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the boy, about his silence, his bruises, that look in his eyes. Who was after him? Why was he so afraid? And why did helicopters sometimes rumble faintly in the sky above the valley these days? Her town was small, quiet, far from anything important. But lately, strange men in suits had been seen driving black cars through the main road, stopping to ask questions. Questions about a boy. A boy who didn't speak. The next morning, Ruby arrived early, even before dawn. She brewed a fresh pot of coffee, set a sandwich on the boy's favorite table, and waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. But the boy didn't come. By noon, she began to worry. Maybe he'd left town. Maybe whoever he was hiding from had found him. She stepped outside, scanning the horizon. That's when she heard it, a distant, deep thudding sound, rhythmic and powerful. Helicopters. Her heart jumped. She turned toward the sound. Over the horizon, 2 black helicopters sliced through the sky, flying low, dust swirling beneath them. They were military, heavy, and armed. What on earth were they doing here? The diner windows rattled as they approached, blades chopping the air like thunder. Ruby shielded her face from the gust of wind as the helicopters descended, landing right across the diner parking lot. The smell of jet fuel filled the air. Inside, coffee cups rattled. The few customers present ducked, staring in shock. Ruby's apron whipped in the wind. Then, through the blinding dust, she saw the silhouettes, soldiers stepping out, armed and alert. And behind them, a tall man in a suit. His expression was cold, his eyes sharp, scanning the diner like a hawk. Ruby's heart pounded. What could they possibly want here? Then she saw him. The boy. Emerging from the far side of the diner, hood up, clutching his small backpack, eyes wide with terror. He froze when he saw the helicopters. His lips parted, but no sound came out. The men in the suit spotted him immediately. "There," he shouted, pointing. The soldiers began to move. Ruby didn't think. She just ran. She rushed outside, grabbing the boy's hand, pulling him toward the back door. "Come on," she cried. The boy stumbled, trying to keep up. Behind them, boots hit the pavement, voices shouting. Ruby's heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. They darted into the kitchen, knocking over a stack of trays. "What's going on?" the cook yelled, but Ruby didn't stop. "He's in danger," she gasped. The boy tugged at her sleeve, shaking his head wildly. He pulled out the crumpled napkin and wrote something fast. "Don't run. They'll hurt you too." Ruby froze. "What do you mean? Who are they?" But before she could read more, the back door burst open, sunlight flooding the room, dust swirling. The tall man stepped inside, calm and commanding. His suit was spotless, even in the chaos. "Ma'am," he said in a voice smooth as steel. "Step away from the boy." Ruby stood protectively in front of him. "He's just a child," she said, her voice shaking. The man's eyes narrowed. "That child," he said slowly, "is not who you think he is." The boy clutched her apron, trembling. The man raised his hand. Soldiers entered behind him, surrounding them. Ruby's pulse raced. "I don't know who you are," she said, "but if you think you can come here and scare." He cut her off. "Do you know what happens when someone hides government property?" Ruby blinked. "Government, what?" The man took a step forward, eyes fixed on the boy. "That boy," he said, "escaped from a classified facility 2 weeks ago. He's dangerous. And he does not belong here." Ruby's heart went cold. She looked down at the boy, the same boy she'd fed every day, the same one who smiled shyly when she gave him pie. "You're lying," she whispered. "He's just a child." The man gave a small, grim smile. "Is he?" The boy's hand slipped from hers. He took a small step back, his head lowering. Then Ruby saw it, faint lines glowing beneath the skin of his neck, like light tracing veins. She gasped. The soldiers raised their weapons. "Don't move," one shouted. The boy's eyes filled with tears. He shook his head desperately, as if trying to say something he couldn't. Then, suddenly, the lights in the diner flickered. The air grew warm, humming softly. Coffee cups rattled on the tables. Ruby turned toward him, and saw the glow spread, crawling up his arms, through his hoodie, like fire under glass. "What's happening?" she whispered. The man stepped forward, his voice sharp. "He's activating. Get back." Ruby didn't move. "He's just scared," she cried. But it was too late, the boy's eyes flashed white, and the entire room erupted in light.